A quick reminder of who is supporting President Nicolas Maduro and who opposes him now. Russia says any moves to remove him from power are illegal, and while Turkey has called him a brother, China is also standing by him. Mexico says it recognizes the current government, as do allies Bolivia and Cuba. The United States and Canada, though, recognize the opposition leader Juan Guaido as the legitimate president. And in South America, the recent rise of the right has eroded support for Maduro in Brazil, Argentina, Chile, and Colombia, among others. Several European nations, including the United Kingdom, Spain, Germany, and France, are also backing Guaido. Well, let's speak now to Tom Long, who joins us via Skype now from Warwick in the UK. He is a professor at the University of Warwick who researches Latin American politics. Thanks very much for being with us. Now, when you look at how desperate the situation is inside Venezuela for so many people there, the economic collapse, the shortages of so many things, the whole idea of wanting to get aid into the country to help people there seems like the right thing to do. But there are those who say that this is all very politicized. What's your view on that?
Thank you very much for having me. Well, I think aid is very often political. In this situation, it comes to the fore just how political it is because you have two men claiming the presidency. And while these images are really dramatic of what has been happening yesterday and over the last few days, this is not an entirely new turn of events. Nicolas Maduro has been rejecting offers of aid from the humanitarian community for some time, suggesting that Venezuela does not need it, that it will not be a beggar state, in his words. But this push from Guaido and his allies certainly increases the risks of conflict at the border, which is what we saw yesterday.
I want to put to you a question that one of our viewers on Facebook is asking. This is Paul on Facebook who's asking, what is the intention of the government by blocking the aid? Do they have an alternative to improve life for their people? That's a legitimate question, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think that's a crucial question. And I think the incentives of the government are complex, or at least have several parts. On the one hand, letting this aid go through and letting the opposition and Guaido distribute it would lend the opposition a great deal of credibility. And so blocking the aid, in a sense, becomes a must for Nicolas Maduro to maintain his own claims that the opposition lacks that credibility. On the other hand, Maduro wants to say that he can provide for the Venezuelan people. He continues to insist that there is no humanitarian crisis in Venezuela, and a lot of the distribution of food and other goods in Venezuela has been done through clientelist programs that were developed specifically to build support for the government. And so keeping control over the flow of goods is one way that Maduro keeps himself in power.
So how do you see this playing out then? Is it going to come down to a situation of seeing of which side blinks first in all of this?
Well, I think since this two-presidency crisis started, one of the problems has been that it very quickly the opposition very quickly started to run out of options and run out of room. It was banking on quick changes of loyalty from the military in particular, and as was the United States and its allies. When that doesn't happen, it is escalating the conflict through this gambit with aid. But Maduro has the advantage of defending the status quo, and it's always easier to defend the status quo than it is to change it. And Guaido is trying to govern without a government, in essence, and to create change without having a bureaucracy behind him. He has allies and he has a lot of public support, but it is very difficult for him to force his will in the way that Maduro can.
Good to speak with you. Tom Long talking to us there from Warwick in the UK. Appreciate your thoughts. Now, as you can imagine, this is playing out online as well. People have been commenting about the aid trucks Rahila's going to tell us more about that. Rahila.
Thanks, Hazem. Well, there's been a lot of confusion as protesters and police clashed in border towns. And many are talking about this aid truck being set on fire on the Francisco de Paula Santander Bridge on the Venezuela-Colombia border. And U.S. politicians have been condemning the latest events. Senator Marco Rubio blamed President Maduro and the Venezuelan troops for preventing the foreign aid getting in. He says the whole world saw the regime use security forces and gangs to kill and injure unarmed civilians. And the whole world saw them set fire to 3 trucks carrying food and other aid. And Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said, what kind of sick tyrant stops food from getting to hungry people? Images of burning trucks filled with aid are sickening. Now, some online are refuting these claims. People like Marcus Papadopoulos from Politics First says the U.S. has weaponized human rights and aid in its bid to overthrow the legitimate government of Venezuela and subdue the people. And producer Max Blumenthal wrote this opinion piece, which is quite interesting, suggesting it was masked opposition youth who torched the trucks themselves. He refers to the Venezuelan channel called Telesur, which published photographs like this showing a guarambero, which means anti-Maduro protester, holding a petrol can next to one of the burning trucks. The channel also shared this video, which is said to show how far away the trucks were from Venezuelan troops when they caught fire. Now, amid all the confusion about who was responsible, the International Red Cross has also issued a statement condemning opposition supporters disguising themselves as Red Cross workers. The group says they might mean well, but risk jeopardizing our neutrality, impartiality and independence. Well, if you are currently in Venezuela, we do want to hear from you. Do tweet us. Use the hashtag AJNewsGrid.